The story begins in the 2000s, in an Eastern European country where a city has been reduced to ruins. Amid the wreckage, a badly injured man sits bleeding while still gripping his handgun. A fresh bullet wound in his torso reveals just how seriously he has been hit. Even as blood spreads beneath him, his hand remains tightly wrapped around the pistol. The frightened girl begs her wounded uncle not to die, but he tells her to forget about him and escape while she still can. Clutching her pink stuffed rabbit, the girl hesitates with tears in her eyes. Knowing the danger is closing in, the injured man firmly orders her to leave immediately before she gets killed as well. Still terrified, the girl finally turns away, preparing to follow his warning. Fighting back tears, the girl finally runs away from her wounded uncle. She quickly disappears down the ruined street while he remains behind, bleeding against the wall. Left alone, the injured man suddenly reacts as something nearby catches his attention. A pair of footsteps approaches through the rubble, signaling that someone is closing in. A mysterious man in a long coat calmly walks through the devastated street toward the wounded survivor. Several armed men follow behind him, surrounding the injured man with no clear path to escape. Staring down at his target, the gray-haired man recognizes him as the infamous Nightshade. Seeing Nightshade wounded before them, the group realizes the terrifying rumors about him were apparently true. Looking over the destruction, the gray-haired man is stunned that Nightshade caused all of this. Bodies litter the ruined street around Nightshade, revealing how many enemies he managed to take down. The man realizes Nightshade defeated everyone here completely by himself as the city continues burning around them. He calls Nightshade beyond saving, unable to understand why someone so capable would throw his life away over a worthless sentiment. Pointing the gun directly at Nightshade, the gray-haired man asks whether he has any final words. Instead of showing fear, Nightshade simply responds with a confident smirk. He even presses the weapon against himself, making it clear that death does not frighten him. Understanding his answer, the gray-haired man says they will meet again in hell before pulling the trigger. 17 years later, the story shifts to a warehouse where a tense confrontation is already underway. A massive man carrying an axe warns the young driver that backing out of the job is no longer an option. The nervous young man protests, saying nobody warned them about this situation and that they were only hired for a simple driving job. Unbothered, the smoking man insists that it is still a driving job and demands to know what the problem is. The nervous driver begs for a break, insisting there is no way this dangerous assignment can be considered a normal job. Panicking even more, he points out that they are being asked to pick up a hitman directly from a murder scene. His complaints are abruptly interrupted as the heavy weapon slams down in front of him. His calmer partner reminds him that they are transporters, meaning their job is simply to move whoever or whatever they are assigned without complaining. Furious with his resistance, the armed man threatens to get rid of the terrified driver on the spot. Before things go any further, his partner suddenly grabs the man's wrist and tells him to wait. The intimidating man pauses in confusion, clearly not expecting anyone to interfere. Keeping his composure, the young man in the cap offers to handle the dangerous pickup alone. Kay steps in to protect his terrified senior, asking the gang to let him go while the others question whether he is serious. Kay keeps smiling and reassures his senior that everything will be fine, believing the hitman would not kill someone without a reason. Still confident in that assumption, Kay heads toward the destination beneath the quiet night sky. But upon arriving, he witnesses a horrifying scene as a bloodied man is violently slammed into the floor. Realizing they have walked into an ambush, one of the men desperately warns his boss to get down. Before they can properly react, another man is suddenly struck in the head by a powerful shot. The remaining men freeze in shock, unable to understand where the unexpected attack came from. Looking toward the damaged wall, one survivor realizes in disbelief that the shot actually came straight through it. The attacker confidently explains that a thin drywall barrier is nowhere near enough to stop the power of his .50 AE round. Inside the room, several men already lie motionless on the floor as the survivors struggle to react. The gray-haired attacker suddenly raises his handgun and fires again without giving his enemies any time to recover. As objects scatter from the impact, one of the men angrily warns the hitman not to underestimate him. The hitman quickly positions himself behind the large table, using it as cover against the remaining attackers. Realizing what he is planning, the surviving men desperately reach for their weapons. Before they can respond, the hitman fires through the table and accurately shoots several of them at once. One survivor cannot understand how the hitman knew exactly where he was, but the hitman coldly explains that a Yakuza member is easy for him to detect. The hitman calmly fires one final shot, finishing off another surviving enemy. With the room finally silent, he casually walks over to the nearby table. He cools his overheated handgun in a bucket of ice as steam rises from the weapon. Surrounded by fallen enemies, the hitman remains completely composed after wiping out the entire group. Kay cautiously peeks into the room and spots the silver-haired hitman standing among the bodies. The hitman suddenly reacts to his presence, making Kay immediately throw up his hands in surrender. Terrified, Kay quickly apologizes and explains that he was only hired to come here. Kay nervously asks if the man is Dahlia, while Dahlia realizes that Kay must be the transporter sent to pick him up. Kay nervously agrees, addressing Dahlia respectfully as he prepares to carry out the transportation job. Later that night, the pair travels through the brightly lit city surrounded by heavy traffic. Kay drives steadily through the streets, taking Dahlia away from the murder scene. Inside the car, an uncomfortable silence hangs between Kay and Dahlia as they continue their journey. Kay nervously glances at Dahlia through the mirror, clearly unsettled by his intimidating presence. Dahlia suddenly asks what is wrong, making Kay panic and quickly insist that it is nothing. Kay awkwardly admits that he was simply amazed by the intense aura of a professional hitman. Dahlia says nothing and responds with a cold stare, making the atmosphere even more uncomfortable. Still uneasy, Kay gathers his courage and asks Dahlia if he can question him about something. Kay explains that when he arrived for the pickup, he noticed something disturbing on the building's first floor. Remembering the dead women and children, Kay nervously asks whether they had also been part of Dahlia's targets. Dahlia casually says they were not targets, but he killed them because they might have caused trouble, leaving Kay horrified by his reasoning. Dahlia coldly explains that professional cleaners handle the bodies, so killing a few extra people costs him nothing. Kay gives an uneasy laugh and admits Dahlia is even more heartless than the frightening rumors suggested. Hearing Kay mention the name Funeral Flowers, Dahlia immediately becomes serious and turns his attention toward him. Dahlia demands to know how Kay learned that name, and Kay explains that his boss was the one who told him about Dahlia. Kay explains that the Funeral Flowers are elite assassins who use flower names as code names, and in the Western underworld, receiving their flowers is basically a death sentence. Dahlia stays quiet for a moment, then angrily realizes that Kay's boss has been revealing information he should have kept secret. Still curious despite the tension, Kay cautiously continues and says that even someone as dangerous as Dahlia must have a story behind his appearance. Kay points to the long scar across Dahlia's face and asks whether it was caused by a knife. Kay wonders aloud whether someone powerful enough to actually wound a funeral flower could really exist. Dahlia falls silent, his expression growing serious as Kay's question brings back an old memory. Noticing the sudden silence, Kay waits quietly for Dahlia to respond. Touching the scar on his face, Dahlia finally reveals that there was once a certain man among the funeral flowers. Dahlia reveals that the man was called Nightshade, a name linked to the poisonous belladonna flower and known in flower language as a gift of death. Living up to that terrifying name, Nightshade was so deadly that Dahlia describes him as nothing less than a reaper. But Nightshade eventually defied the organization's orders, throwing everything away for the sake of a single child. Dahlia then reveals the grim ending, admitting that he personally killed Nightshade with his own hands. Kay calmly acknowledges the story, but his relaxed reaction only makes the tension inside the car grow. Dahlia suddenly points his gun at Kay and asks if that story was good enough for him to take to the grave. Kay freezes in shock, unable to understand why Dahlia has suddenly turned the weapon on him. Without hesitation, Dahlia tightens his finger around the trigger. Dahlia reveals that Kay's driving was actually a perfect anti-tailing maneuver, and he had been secretly checking for pursuers the entire time, proving he is no ordinary transporter. Dahlia points out something even stranger, saying that despite Kay's nervous act, he has never truly been afraid during their entire conversation. He explains that genuine fear causes a distinct smell from a person's sweat, making nervousness difficult to hide from someone experienced like him. Since Dahlia cannot detect that scent from Kay at all, he realizes Kay has remained completely calm and finally demands to know who he really is. With Dahlia still watching closely, Kay keeps both hands steady on the steering wheel. Then his fingers suddenly loosen, as if he is preparing to make his next move. Kay calmly lifts one hand away from the wheel while continuing to drive without showing any fear. Dahlia stares at him in confusion, clearly caught off guard by Kay's strange reaction. Kay suddenly stomps the accelerator, sending the car surging forward at full speed. The car violently swerves across the road, making Dahlia angrily demand to know what Kay is doing. Using the sudden movement, Kay launches a lightning-fast counterattack toward Dahlia without losing his composure. Dahlia's eyes widen in shock as he realizes the supposedly harmless transporter has finally made his move. Kay suddenly stomps the accelerator, sending the car surging forward at full speed. The car violently swerves across the road, making Dahlia angrily demand to know what Kay is doing. Using the sudden movement, Kay launches a lightning-fast counterattack toward Dahlia without losing his composure. Dahlia's eyes widen in shock as he realizes the supposedly harmless transporter has finally made his move. Kay immediately follows up, launching himself toward Dahlia with a blade in hand. His eyes turn deadly serious as he closes the distance at incredible speed. Dahlia reacts instantly and fires, realizing just how fast Kay really is. Kay swings his blade through the attack, continuing his assault without slowing down. Dahlia reacts instantly, raising his arm to block Kay's incoming blade at the last moment. Clicking his tongue in frustration, Dahlia twists away and quickly creates space from Kay's attack. He immediately grips his handgun and moves his finger onto the trigger, preparing to fire again. But Kay suddenly slips beneath his line of attack, catching Dahlia off guard with another unexpected movement. Kay reveals that he deliberately struck the vulnerable side of Dahlia's handgun, knowing the impact could cause the weapon to jam. With a confident smirk, Kay explains that even a powerful desert eagle is surprisingly delicate when hit in the right place. Dahlia immediately checks the damaged handgun as the weapon fails to function properly. Dahlia realizes that in just a split second, Kay had accurately targeted his weapon and disabled it during their clash. Furious at being underestimated, Dahlia charges forward and warns Kay not to mock him. Dahlia suddenly draws a hidden blade and strikes at Kay from close range. Kay reacts instantly, reaching out before the blade can land. The two clash at close range as Kay intercepts Dahlia's attack with his bare hands. Dahlia suddenly realizes he can no longer properly control his arm, as if Kay's strike has disrupted the nerves inside it. Refusing to stop, Dahlia immediately swings back at Kay with his remaining strength. Kay slips inside his attack and lands a powerful counterstrike directly against Dahlia. The impact throws Dahlia off balance as Kay moves past him, keeping complete control of their close-range fight. Kay drives another devastating strike into Dahlia, smashing him hard against the ground. As blood spills from his face, Dahlia realizes these attacks are doing far more than causing ordinary physical damage. With every hit, Dahlia feels his nerves being steadily damaged, and the sensation reminds him of something terrifyingly familiar. The truth finally hits him as he recognizes the effect as being just like belladonna poison. Standing over the injured Dahlia, Kay's entire presence suddenly feels far more dangerous than before. Dahlia demands to know who he really is, but Kay calmly mocks him for being as slow as ever and calls him the same scent-obsessed man he remembers. Dahlia freezes in disbelief as that familiar insult finally triggers a buried memory. Kay calmly tells Dahlia that he finally figured it out, then reveals that it has been a long time since they last met. Dahlia can barely believe what he is seeing, but Kay calmly tells him that he is the one refusing to accept the impossible. Kay mocks Dahlia for claiming he killed Nightshade with his own hands, saying he is exaggerating what really happened. Kay reminds him that Dahlia only arrived after Nightshade was already dying, exposing the truth behind his earlier boast. Dahlia insists it cannot be true because Nightshade definitely died that night, but Kay calmly agrees, confirming that he really did die back then. Kay reveals the impossible truth, saying that even though he died 17 years ago, somehow he is alive again. Dahlia stares at him in disbelief, struggling to understand how a dead man could possibly return to life. Still refusing to accept it, Dahlia insists that something this ridiculous should be completely impossible. As the blade drops beside him, Kay casually moves his foot toward it, preparing for whatever comes next. Kay calmly picks up the fallen blade, his expression turning serious as he faces Dahlia again. Dahlia asks if revenge is his real goal, but Kay replies that while revenge sounds tempting, that is not what he truly came for. Kay remembers the small pink rabbit from the past, bringing back memories connected to the child he once protected. Kay reveals that there is something the organization took from him long ago, and now he intends to take it back. Kay declares that to reclaim what was taken from him, he intends to burn the entire organization known as the Garden to the ground. Dahlia is stunned by that goal and mocks the idea, refusing to believe Kay could possibly destroy the organization by himself. Dahlia warns that the funeral flowers have grown even stronger, with some members now surpassing even Kay's former strength. But before Dahlia can finish warning that Kay cannot change anything alone, Kay strikes him down and cuts his words short. Kay finishes Dahlia with a brutal final strike, sending blood spraying through the air. Dahlia collapses onto the road while Kay calmly stands over his fallen body. Kay coldly tells Dahlia to enjoy the coming show from hell before leaving him behind. Elsewhere, several mysterious figures gather around a long table, suggesting the organization is already making its next move. At the organization's meeting, the silver-haired man brings up Dahlia's name while a young woman stands silently behind him. He then reveals the shocking news that Dahlia has been killed. The young woman's eyes widen in surprise as she hears about Dahlia's death. Turning toward her, the silver-haired man asks whether she remembers Dahlia, drawing her attention back to the past. The silver-haired man reminds her that Dahlia was the one who finished off the man who once protected her during the war. As she quietly closes her eyes, he refers to that man as the benefactor who helped her survive the Civil War. The group begins questioning who could have killed Dahlia, wondering whether the Japanese police or even the United States made a move. But another possibility remains that Dahlia may have been killed by someone completely unexpected. The silver-haired leader concludes that something dangerous has begun growing inside their new garden in Japan. He calmly taps the armrest, already deciding how the organization should respond. Calling the unknown threat an unpleasant weed, he makes it clear that he intends to eliminate it quickly. He orders the young woman to inform the funeral flowers, signaling that the organization's deadliest assassins are about to make their move. The organization gives itself just 1 month to pull out the dangerous weed growing in Japan. Meanwhile, Kay remembers that ever since he was young, his entire life had been surrounded by war and destruction. He never even knew his parents' faces, growing up completely alone as a war orphan. As a child, Kay survived among the ruins with no family left to protect him. One day, a mysterious man appeared before the orphan Kay and offered him a brutal choice. The man told Kay he could remain there and eventually die helplessly like a stray dog. Or instead, Kay could choose the other path, kill others in order to survive. The young Kay hesitantly reaches out and accepts the handgun being offered to him. Without fully understanding what the choice truly meant, young Kay chose the path of killing in order to survive. From that moment, Kay was immediately put through harsh firearms training and forced to learn how to shoot. His instructor drilled one brutal rule into him: never hesitate, because failing to kill an enemy could mean dying himself. Kay continued training relentlessly, learning to shoot while constantly moving as his instructor pushed him to improve. As Kay's training continued, he learned that the funeral flowers were far more than a simple organization of hired assassins. The group claimed to serve a greater purpose, using their deadly skills to protect the balance and order of the world. Their targets included corrupt dictators, drug lords, terrorists, and other dangerous figures they believed were destroying society. By eliminating those threats, the funeral flowers justified their killings as a necessary evil meant to prevent wars and save countless lives. Kay's training became increasingly intense, forcing him to react instantly while bullets flew around him. His accuracy sharpened until he could repeatedly hit vital points with deadly precision. Kay simply obeyed every order he received, gradually becoming a killing machine dedicated to carrying out the funeral flowers' supposed greater cause. But everything changed when Kay was ordered to capture a target's daughter and a traitor nearby, with strict instructions to find them and eliminate them both. As Kay tries to escape with the girl, his body suddenly starts failing, leaving him pale, sweating, and struggling to breathe. After serving the garden for 20 years, Kay finally defies their orders, while the worried girl notices how dangerously weak he has become. Kay realizes he has been poisoned, and with his nervous system rapidly shutting down, he knows he probably does not have much time left. With his trembling hand barely responding, Kay accepts the grim truth that after everything he survived, he is now dying. Kay gives the girl a destination and tells her that a transporter will be waiting there to pick her up. Knowing he may not survive, Kay orders her to escape alone, change her name, and start a completely new life while wondering why he chose to risk everything for her. The girl silently accepts the note from Kay, realizing that he expects her to leave without him. Clutching her stuffed rabbit tightly, the girl lowers her head as the painful reality of their separation sinks in. Refusing to abandon Kay, the girl grabs onto him and insists that no matter what he says, she will not leave without him. Looking straight at him with determination, she demands that Kay tell her what she can do to save his life. Seeing her determination, Kay finally realizes that her eyes were the reason he could not simply follow his orders. Those desperate green eyes had shaken the emotionless assassin inside him, throwing the cold machinery of his life completely out of balance. Kay hides inside a ruined building, desperately searching for anything that might keep him alive. Surrounded by piles of medicine bottles, Kay realizes the substance he needs is atropine sulfate. He knows atropine can counter nerve agent poisoning, but ordinary eye drops contain only tiny amounts, forcing him to collect a huge supply. With less than 20 minutes remaining, Kay realizes he barely has enough time to gather the massive amount needed to survive. The girl returns completely on her own and is relieved to see Kay's color finally coming back. Kay is stunned that, despite being surrounded by enemies, she still chose to stay beside him instead of escaping. Looking at her battered shoes, Kay realizes the girl actually risked her own life just to gather what he needed. She calmly tells Kay to rest, reassuring him that she checked the area and found no one nearby. Kay asks whether she regrets staying, reminding her that she threw away her chance to escape and survive. The girl says she never wanted that kind of survival and instead asks Kay to keep protecting her from now on, proving something inside him has already begun to change. Kay firmly reminds her that he is only an assassin, not her family or guardian, and refuses to accept the role she is giving him. The girl only pouts at his rejection, while Kay realizes the person he used to be would never have allowed himself to become this emotionally involved. Kay finally admits that he cannot live with himself while owing such a huge debt to a child who risked everything to save him. He gently pats her head and promises to protect her until the day she can finally regain her freedom. At the very end of his life as an assassin, Kay unexpectedly makes a promise that gives him a completely new purpose. The girl happily accepts his promise, smiling brightly as the two finally form a bond that will change both of their lives. For the first time in his old life, Kay had made a genuine promise, but his memory is suddenly interrupted when Misaki aggressively wakes him up. Misaki yanks Kay out of bed so forcefully that he crashes onto the floor. Still half asleep, Kay asks why Misaki is waking him so early, while reflecting that 17 years have already passed since his death. Misaki angrily reminds him that it is already 7:30 and he will be late for school, making Kay realize he now lives a completely different life. Kay apologizes and says he will get ready immediately, while Misaki complains that he has been oversleeping lately. Meanwhile, Kay reflects on how strangely normal his new life as a high school student has become. Before leaving the room, Misaki suddenly stops and calls out to Kay, making him look up in confusion. Misaki admits that ever since Kay fell down the stairs and hit his head, his behavior has seemed noticeably different. She also points out that Kay came home late yesterday with his clothes smelling like smoke, leaving him visibly nervous about what she might suspect. Kay realizes the smoke smell came from burning the car to destroy the evidence from his secret activities. Growing suspicious, Misaki asks whether Kay has started hanging around with a dangerous crowd. Kay nervously denies it and invents a story about staying late at a friend's barbecue, claiming they spent the night eating meat and vegetables. Misaki immediately remembers that Kay used to hate vegetables, forcing him to awkwardly claim that hitting his head somehow changed his taste buds. Kay desperately explains that his head injury must have affected the brain's reward system, which would explain why his food preferences suddenly changed. Misaki simply stares at him in silence, clearly unconvinced by his suspiciously detailed explanation. She eventually drops the subject and tells Kay to hurry downstairs because their mother says breakfast is getting cold. Relieved to escape her questioning, Kay admits Misaki is surprisingly sharp and reflects that he has somehow managed to maintain a perfectly normal daily life so far. After Misaki leaves, Kay slowly gets up and turns his attention towards something inside the room. Looking at a family photograph, Kay admits that even now, this peaceful new life still does not feel completely real to him. 17 years after his original death, Kay still has no idea why his old consciousness suddenly awakened inside this younger body. He quietly reaches for the family photo, reflecting on the unfamiliar life and family that now belong to him. Kay realizes he did not simply take over this body, because the original Kay Kisaragi's memories and emotions are still clearly alive inside him. He remembers that everything began after Kay fell down the stairs 10 days ago, though the memories surrounding that accident are completely missing. Kay wonders whether hitting his head somehow awakened memories from his previous life, but even he admits that explanation sounds completely unscientific. Before Kay can think any further, a sudden notification interrupts him and pulls his attention away. Kay decides that solving the mystery of his reincarnation can wait, because he has something more urgent to handle first. Putting those thoughts aside, Kei turns his attention back to the task waiting for him. Kei sits at his computer and receives word that the analysis he requested has finally been completed. His contact explains that decrypting the information was extremely difficult, revealing just how heavily protected the data was. Kei explains that the data being analyzed came from the chip he secretly took from Dahlia after their fight. He remembers standing over Dahlia's body moments after defeating him on the road. Before leaving, Kei quietly searched Dahlia and removed something from his clothing. That item was a pocket watch, which Kei now holds as another clue connected to Dahlia and the garden. Kei opens Dahlia's pocket watch and discovers that something has been hidden inside it. A small data chip slides out from the watch, confirming that Dahlia had been carrying secret information with him. Kei praises his contact for working quickly, saying that tracking down someone from his old network was worth the effort. His contact admits he was shocked when Kei suddenly reached out after more than 10 years, especially because Kei also asked for the whereabouts of a former colleague. Kei's contact admits he once doubted whether Kei was truly Nightshade, but after seeing him kill Dahlia, there is no longer any reason to question his identity. Before revealing the analysis results, the contact demands that Kei answer an important question first. He recalls how Nightshade defied an order to eliminate a parent and child 17 years ago before supposedly dying, and now wonders how Kei could possibly still be alive. The contact then asks why Kei has returned after all these years and once again chosen to turn against the organization. Kei's contact asks whether his return is connected to the girl from 17 years ago, Lilia. After Kei was believed dead, the garden took Lilia away, leaving behind the stuffed rabbit tied to their past. Years later, Lilia is shown standing before a large audience beneath the garden's emblem. For 17 years, the garden has kept Lilia trapped under their control, using her public image like a living billboard for the organization. Behind the public image, Lilia is given absolutely no freedom and is kept under the garden's strict control. Kei's contact adds that Lilia is treated harshly, revealing how cruel her life inside the organization has become. Remembering the girl he once promised to protect, Kei is asked whether saving Lilia from the garden is the real reason he has returned. Kei closes his eyes in silence, clearly affected by the question. Kei remembers Lilia's bright smile, bringing back the promise he made to protect her all those years ago. His contact wonders why a cold-blooded killing machine like Kei would care so deeply, but Kei refuses to explain his reasons. Kei reminds him of their old rule against unnecessary prying, making it clear that the subject is not open for discussion. The contact falls silent, realizing Kei has no intention of revealing anything more. Kei's contact finally gives up questioning him, remarking that Kei is still as stubborn as ever. A notification sounds from the computer as the decrypted information finally appears on screen. The data reveals Dahlia's next intended target, showing the image of a young schoolgirl whose name is about to be identified. Kei studies the girl's profile in silence, immediately realizing that this new target may be important. The scene shifts to a prestigious girls' school as students begin arriving for the day. Groups of students gather near the school entrance, casually chatting before class. Among them, the mysterious girl from Dahlia's target list quietly walks through the campus. Her classmates greet Shido warmly and tell her they will see her tomorrow before heading off. Shido politely returns her classmates' farewell, wishing everyone a good day and telling them to take care. Shido calmly walks away while the other students remain gathered behind her. The girls continue chatting among themselves, completely unaware that Shido may be in danger. Nearby, Kei secretly watches the area while checking his phone, keeping Shido under surveillance. Kei identifies the target as Akari Shido, a 17-year-old student and the daughter of a powerful Yakuza family. Further research reveals that Akari is the only daughter of the boss leading one of Japan's largest Yakuza syndicates. Kei realizes the garden was planning to assassinate this seemingly ordinary schoolgirl because of her dangerous family connection. Kei reflects on the strange contrast between them. Akari is just a student, while he is hunting a global assassination syndicate. Kei knows the garden has enormous influence, with connections reaching deep into the political and financial circles of countries around the world. Even worse, the organization commands assassins with almost superhuman abilities, making Kei realize he cannot realistically fight the garden empty-handed. Because of that overwhelming disadvantage, Kei decides to use Akari Shido's dangerous situation as the first step in building the power he needs. By protecting Akari and using this opportunity wisely, Kei intends to create the foundation he needs to eventually burn the garden to the ground. Kei continues watching Akari from a distance while she moves through the school grounds with her classmates. He finds it unusual that a Yakuza boss sent his daughter to such an elite girls' school, figuring her father must have spoiled her heavily. Kei notices the man guarding Akari and casually remarks that escorting her to and from school every day must be exhausting. Turning directly toward the hidden protector, Kei calmly addresses him as Mr. Bodyguard, revealing that he noticed him all along. The bodyguard warns Kei that suspicious people have been circling the Shido group lately, telling him the underworld is not somewhere an amateur should enter for fun. Looking down on Kei, he assumes the young man has probably never even held a gun, while Kei calmly thanks him for the warning. Kei then reveals that he is no ordinary amateur, declaring that he is about to make his return to the dangerous world he once belonged to. Sensing the threat behind Kei's words, the bodyguard stops him and declares that he will not be allowed to go any farther. The bodyguard demands to know who Kei works for and why he has been following the young miss. Kei calmly explains that Akari was not exactly his target, though he clearly has another reason for approaching her. Unsatisfied with the vague answer, the bodyguard clenches his fist and decides he no longer needs Kei to explain willingly. Taking a fighting stance, the bodyguard declares that he will simply beat the truth out of Kei himself. The bodyguard throws a powerful punch, but Kei calmly leans back and avoids it. After watching his movement, Kei quickly recognizes that the bodyguard is trained in boxing. Refusing to back down, the bodyguard charges forward with another aggressive attack. Frustrated that Kei keeps evading him, the bodyguard angrily curses the young brat. The bodyguard suddenly shifts his footing, preparing another aggressive attack. Kei smoothly steps into position, watching the bodyguard's movement without showing any fear. Furious, the bodyguard swings down with full force and warns Kei not to mess with him. Kei reacts instantly and catches the bodyguard's wrist, stopping the attack before it can land. Keeping hold of the bodyguard's arm, Kei smoothly redirects his momentum and moves inside his guard. Before the man can react, Kei suddenly grabs him by the throat, completely catching him off guard. Kei tightens his grip and forces the bodyguard off balance, leaving him unable to counter. In one swift motion, Kei slams the bodyguard hard onto the ground, ending the exchange instantly. Kei calmly tells the fallen bodyguard to relax, explaining that he is not actually his enemy. Still tense and frustrated, the bodyguard stares at Kei in silence, unsure whether he can trust him. Before the confrontation can continue, Akari suddenly appears and firmly orders them to stop. The injured bodyguard immediately recognizes her and calls out to the young miss from the ground. Akari calmly approaches Kei and the fallen bodyguard without showing any hesitation. Akari admits she does not know who Kei is, but firmly orders him to release Katajiri. Kei is quietly impressed by Akari's courage, realizing she has more nerve than he expected. Kei agrees to let Katajiri go, but only if Akari is willing to hear what he has to say. Still holding Katajiri down, Kei tells Akari that he has been wanting to speak with her and casually suggests discussing everything over tea. Akari quietly considers Kei's request, remaining calm despite the strange confrontation. After making her decision, Akari turns away and simply tells Kei to follow her. The scene shifts to a quiet side street as Akari leads Kei somewhere more private to talk. Akari leads Kei and Katajiri into a quiet, upscale cafe tucked away from the street. The place is revealed to be Cafe and Bar Savannah, giving them somewhere private to continue the conversation. Sitting inside, Kei remarks that it is a nice place, though it hardly feels like somewhere a sheltered young lady would normally choose. Katajiri still glares at Kei in anger, but Akari cuts through the tension and tells him to get straight to the point. A cup of tea is quietly placed on the table as the tense conversation begins. Akari calmly asks Kei to explain why he deliberately approached her in the first place. Kei reveals that Akari is not his target at all. Instead, an assassin is already coming after her. Akari and Katajiri fall silent as Kei adds that they probably already have a good idea why someone wants her dead. Kei points out that Akari would not need such a dangerous bodyguard unless her family already knew she was facing serious threats. When Kei says Katajiri still cannot protect her from Chauka, Akari reacts in surprise at the unfamiliar name. Kei explains that Chauka are master assassins so dangerous that even an entire army of Yakuza would stand little chance against them. Akari stares at Kei with growing suspicion, realizing that he knows far more about the threat against her than an ordinary stranger should. Akari and Katajiri demand to know who Kei really is and exactly how much he knows about the threat surrounding her. Kei remains calm under their suspicion, preparing to explain where he stands in this conflict. Kei makes it clear that he is not exactly their ally, but he is the enemy of the people trying to kill Akari. Kei offers to eliminate Chowka himself, then casually announces that he will be staying at Akari's estate for a while. Furious at Kei's proposal, Katajiri suddenly reaches for his weapon, ready to put an end to the conversation by force. Kei immediately warns him not to do it, his calm expression making it clear that drawing a weapon would be a terrible mistake. In an instant, Kei releases an overwhelming killing intent that freezes both Akari and Katajiri in place. Katajiri goes silent and breaks into a sweat, finally realizing just how dangerous the man sitting across from them truly is. Shaken by Kei's overwhelming presence, Katajiri finally backs down instead of escalating the confrontation. Akari remains skeptical and directly asks Kei why she should believe anything he is telling her. Kei brings up the recent massacre in Yokohama, reminding them of the brutal attack that killed several members of the Shido group. He reveals that the killers responsible for murdering 3 of the group's executives and their associates were Chowka. Katajiri is shocked because the Yokohama massacre was never reported publicly, meaning Kei should have had no way of knowing about it. Kei points out that a media blackout is clearly covering up the incident, then reveals in even more specific detail the victims were killed with a desert eagle. Kei identifies the assassin responsible as one of Chowka's operatives, a deadly hitman known by the codename Dahlia. Katajiri is stunned by Kei's detailed knowledge and demands to know how he could possibly know so much about the secret killings. Kei places the weapon on the table and bluntly reveals that he was the one who took Dahlia down. He tells Akari and Katajiri to have the police run a ballistics test, claiming the gun should perfectly match the bullets recovered from the victims. Kei adds that the garden's cleaners, who were supposed to dispose of the bodies and evidence after Dahlia's job, were also eliminated following his battle with Dahlia. Katajiri connects the clues and, visibly shaken, asks whether Kei himself was the one who killed those 3 men with that gun. Kei points out that if Akari were truly his target, he would have had no reason to go through so much trouble explaining himself. Akari studies Kei carefully, weighing his words and the evidence he has presented. After a moment of thought, Akari decides to believe Kei's story, much to Katajiri's surprise. Akari orders Katajiri to prepare the car and announces that they are returning to the Shido estate. Akari brings Kei to the Shido family's enormous estate, the main headquarters of their powerful Yakuza organization. Inside, Akari calmly waits while Katajiri remains visibly uneasy about allowing Kei into their home. Katajiri openly protests, warning Akari that bringing such a suspicious stranger into the estate is far too dangerous. Kei casually enters anyway and remarks on how grand the Shido estate is, exactly what he would expect from the headquarters of a major Yakuza syndicate. Kei casually examines the estate and even asks whether the Tang tricolor pottery displayed in the second-floor hallway is authentic. Akari confirms that it apparently is, while Katajiri angrily yells at Kei for wandering around the estate without permission. Ignoring the complaint, Kei quietly analyzes the mansion's defenses and notes that security includes 1 guard at the front gate and 2 teams patrolling the gardens. Kei completes his assessment by identifying another guard monitoring the estate's surveillance feeds from the security room. Kei continues evaluating the estate's security setup, including the surveillance system monitoring the property. Katajiri is startled when Kei begins pointing out weaknesses in their protection after only a few minutes inside. Kei says putting Akari in body armor is sensible, but warns that level E protection is far too weak against the kind of assassins targeting her. Akari is quietly shocked by how much Kei has already noticed, realizing his experience and observational skills are far beyond what she expected. Kei warns Akari that the assassins coming after her are far beyond ordinary killers and tells her to evacuate everyone from the estate for their own safety. Elsewhere, the atmosphere around the estate turns ominous as something quietly approaches through the darkness. A mysterious figure steps forward, revealing that the enemy has already begun moving. A dangerous female assassin appears armed and ready, signaling that Chowka has arrived at the Shido estate. The approaching Chowka assassin prepares her weapon, signaling that the attack on the Shido estate is imminent. Kei warns Akari that the enemies coming for her are far beyond ordinary hitmen and again urges her to evacuate everyone from the mansion. Katajiri angrily objects, demanding to know why they should send away the Shido group's own guards. Kei coldly explains that ordinary fighters are useless against the funeral flowers, they would only die for nothing and get in his way. Katajiri angrily grabs Kei and insists that the Shido guards are willing to risk their lives, refusing to accept being dismissed as useless. Akari interrupts the argument and firmly orders Katajiri to follow Kei's instructions. When Katajiri hesitates, Akari calmly asks him to trust her decision. Katajiri finally gives in and agrees, accepting that the estate's personnel will be evacuated as Kei requested. The Shido estate's guards begin leaving under orders, despite some of them questioning why they are abandoning their posts. Katajiri reports that everyone has been sent home exactly as Kei instructed. Akari makes one exception to the evacuation, allowing Katajiri to remain and act as he sees fit. Kei accepts the arrangement but admits he is surprised by how cooperative Akari has been, remarking that she seems to trust him an unusual amount. Akari explains that although she does not fully understand the funeral flowers, she already knew ordinary guards would be useless if professional assassins were coming after her. Kei agrees with her reasoning, stating that the best way to deal with assassins is to leave the job to another assassin. Curious about her confidence, Kei asks what makes Akari so certain that he himself is an assassin. Akari quietly reveals the reason she has seen a real assassin before. Akari explains that when Kei subdued Katajiri earlier, the look in his eyes was exactly the same as the assassin she had once encountered. She describes those eyes as belonging to someone focused on neither the past nor the future, only the present, like a beast completely fixated on the prey directly before it. Kei reacts awkwardly to the comparison, rubbing his face as Akari's observation hits uncomfortably close to home. Akari then adds that there was still one subtle difference in Kei's eyes, beginning to explain what separated him from the assassin she remembered. Akari explains that Kei's eyes were different from the cold, mechanical gaze of an assassin who kills without emotion. Instead, she says she could feel an intense, burning heat behind Kei's stare. Akari senses that Kei is driven by deep hatred towards something, along with a powerful determination to accomplish a specific goal. She describes what she saw in him as a fiery, almost obsessive passion, proof that Kei is fighting for something far more personal than simple killing. Akari concludes that the passion she saw in Kei's eyes is why she ultimately decided to place her trust in him. Kei quietly accepts her explanation, beginning to understand why Akari has been so willing to cooperate with him. Kei then asks about the assassin whose eyes reminded Akari of his, prompting her to reveal that the woman was responsible for killing her father, the head of the Shido group. Akari reveals that she personally witnessed her father's murder, making her memories of the assassin and that terrifying gaze impossible to forget. Kei asks Akari what kind of woman the assassin who killed her father was. Akari remembers her as an elegant elderly woman with a gentle smile, someone who looked as harmless as an old family friend. The woman had calmly appeared before Akari's father, giving no outward sign that she had come to kill him. Without warning, the seemingly gentle visitor revealed her true nature and brutally attacked the men around Akari's father. Akari recalls that the elderly assassin kept the same gentle smile as she slaughtered her father's bodyguards by cutting their throats. Kei suddenly interrupts her story, realizing that one specific detail might confirm the assassin's identity. Kei asks whether the woman's knife carried the distinctive design of a red spider lily. Akari is stunned by the question and immediately demands to know how Kei could possibly know that detail. Kei immediately recognizes the significance of the red spider lily symbol and realizes exactly which assassin Akari encountered. He identifies the elderly woman as another funeral flower associated with the spider lily, shocked that she is apparently still active after all these years. As Kei processes the revelation, the atmosphere inside the estate suddenly shifts and Akari begins to sense that something is off. Akari stops and warns Kei that something is wrong, signaling that the danger they were expecting may already be close. Kei immediately senses the change in atmosphere and asks Akari what has caught her attention. Footsteps approach through the supposedly secured estate, confirming that someone has already infiltrated the mansion. Blood marks the floor as a familiar voice addresses Kei as "little boy," revealing that the intruder has arrived after cutting through anyone in her path. The elderly assassin Akari described appears in person and calmly asks Kei whether he is ready to talk. Katajiri is already wounded and struggling to remain upright after confronting the elderly assassin inside the estate. The assassin calmly observes that the Shido mansion has been transformed into something resembling a spider's web. She reveals that she can detect traces of traps planted throughout the estate, realizing that someone has carefully prepared the building for an attack. Turning back to Katajiri, she demands that he reveal who else is hiding inside the mansion, ominously warning him of the consequences if he refuses. The elderly assassin produces a fan of long needles and calmly threatens Katajiri with a cruel, petal-picking game if he refuses to cooperate. Already injured, Katajiri grits his teeth and struggles through the pain rather than giving her the information she wants. She leans in with a chilling smile, casually pressing him for an answer as though his suffering means nothing to her. The assassin suddenly steps forward with force, signaling that her interrogation is about to become even more brutal. Akari suddenly rushes into the confrontation, intervening before the elderly assassin can finish off the wounded Katajiri. Akari desperately intercepts the assassin's attack, managing to stop the strike despite the overwhelming pressure behind it. Breathing heavily, Akari explains how she realized something was wrong. Katajiri would never normally be late with his regular reports. Katajiri panics when he sees Akari confronting the assassin directly and desperately shouts for her to stay back. Akari positions herself between the wounded Katajiri and the elderly assassin, making it clear she intends to protect him despite the danger. The assassin calmly readies her needle-like weapons against Akari's blade, showing no concern at being confronted directly. Akari grits her teeth and steels herself for the fight, refusing to retreat even against an opponent she knows is extraordinarily dangerous. The assassin smiles and remarks that Akari coming to her willingly saves her the trouble of hunting down her actual target. The elderly assassin makes another terrifyingly precise attack, leaving Katajiri helpless as Akari realizes just how lethal the woman truly is. Akari freezes in shock as the horrifying memories of her father's murder begin rushing back. The assassin reveals that she remembers Akari perfectly, calling her the little kitten who secretly watched through a gap in the cupboard all those years ago. Akari's childhood memory confirms it. The assassin had noticed her hiding during the murder, meaning Akari was never truly unseen that night. The elderly assassin remarks that Akari has grown to possess exactly the same eyes as her father. Staring at Akari with predatory delight, the assassin says those determined eyes look absolutely delicious. Akari suddenly senses the incoming attack, her eyes widening as the assassin makes her move. The assassin unleashes a rapid barrage of lethal strikes, forcing Akari to desperately defend herself at close range. The elderly assassin abruptly halts her assault as she senses someone else approaching the room. Akari and the wounded Katajiri turn toward the entrance, realizing another person has arrived in the middle of the confrontation. Kei calmly steps through the doorway with an exasperated good grief, having finally caught up to Akari. Kei appears behind them with an intimidating presence and scolds Akari for recklessly running off, saying he wishes she would behave like someone who knows she is supposed to be under protection. Kei steps forward with a murderous intensity, making it clear that he is now taking over the confrontation. The elderly assassin recognizes Kei's presence and remarks that she knew some unknown spider monster had been lurking around the estate. She immediately prepares her needle-like weapons, shifting her attention away from Akari and onto Kei. The assassin launches a volley of needles toward him, but Kei reacts in time as the projectiles stab into the floor around his feet. The elderly assassin unleashes her killing intent, surrounding herself with a sinister red aura as she readies her blade against Kei. Kei answers with an equally cold stare, his eyes glowing red as he prepares to fight seriously. Without hesitation, Kei begins walking straight toward her, showing no fear despite the assassin's overwhelming presence. The assassin raises her weapon between them as Kei closes the distance, setting the stage for their direct clash. Akari and Katajiri watch tensely as Kei calmly faces the charging assassin without showing any fear. The assassin rushes straight at Kei with her knife raised, while Kei remains completely still instead of taking a conventional fighting stance. Realizing how composed he is, the assassin concludes that Kei is no ordinary young fighter. Kei's behavior reflects practical combat training. Against an armed opponent, certain martial arts teach that taking a fixed stance can be a disadvantage, so he stays loose and ready to react. The narration explains the logic behind Kei's stance-less approach. Against a knife, trying to block the blade with bare hands is dangerously ineffective. It emphasizes that the arms contain major arteries, meaning even a single slash while attempting to defend could be fatal. Instead, Kei deliberately lowers his stance and leaves himself seemingly open, using vulnerability as part of his strategy. By doing so, Kei baits the assassin into targeting more predictable areas such as his torso or neck, allowing him to anticipate the attack rather than react blindly. The narration explains the textbook response. Once the armed opponent overcommits and steps into range, Kei can intercept the attack with a devastating counter. The assassin recognizes the theory behind Kei's strategy, but notes that understanding such a technique and actually executing it against a real blade are completely different matters. Kei remains standing almost completely defenseless before a sharp weapon, deliberately inviting the assassin to attack first. Seeing through the setup, the assassin realizes Kei is clearly waiting for her to commit so he can launch a counterattack. The elderly assassin decides she needs to approach Kei cautiously, recognizing that carelessness against him could be fatal. Kay suddenly uses his cap as a distraction, catching the assassin off guard and breaking the rhythm she had been carefully trying to establish. The assassin's eyes widen as Kay's killing intent surges, and she realizes he has already seized the initiative. Kay explodes into motion and closes the distance with a lightning-fast attack, forcing the veteran assassin onto the defensive before she can properly react. The elderly assassin narrowly evades Kay's sudden opening strike, twisting away with impressive speed and agility. Their first exchange ends with both fighters recovering from the rapid clash, neither having gained a decisive advantage. Kay admits that he had hoped his unexpected first attack would catch the veteran assassin off guard. Amused rather than shaken, the assassin praises Kay's nerve, remarking that she never expected the little boy to be the one who attacked first. The veteran assassin realizes Kay's opening attack was aimed specifically at her perineal nerve, recognizing that his strike had a more technical purpose than simply damaging her. She identifies Kay's fighting method as silat, remarking that it has been a long time since she faced someone trained in that martial art. The narration explains that striking the common perineal nerve near the outside of the knee can numb or temporarily impair the leg, and that targeting this nerve is one of silat's characteristic techniques. Kay is impressed that she deduced his martial art from only a single attack, teasingly admitting that the old lady really knows her stuff. The elderly assassin remarks that Kay's combination of silat and his irritating attitude reminds her of a particularly unpleasant man from her past. Her memories shift back more than 20 years to a period when she had retired from frontline assassination work and was serving as a combat instructor for the Flower Garden. The flashback recalls the intensive weapons training given to Flower Garden assassins, emphasizing precision and control rather than simply overpowering an opponent. Her former training lesson is revealed. The technique does not depend on brute strength. The fighter must create and control the flow of battle itself. In the flashback, the instructor explains that once the fighter creates the proper flow, the blade should be allowed to move naturally along that current. The young trainee listens in silence, still struggling to fully grasp what she is trying to teach him. Seeing that her explanation is not getting through, the instructor decides to continue the sparring session and teach him through experience instead. She immediately demonstrates the principle in motion, smoothly redirecting and controlling the weapon's path with precise timing rather than relying on raw strength. After experiencing the technique only once, the young trainee claims that he already understands the basic principle behind it. He immediately demands that the instructor teach him the next technique, displaying an unsettling confidence and hunger to keep learning. The instructor realizes the frightening truth. The boy is a genuine prodigy who has already surpassed her technique after seeing it performed only a single time. Shaken by his monstrous talent, she resigns from her position as an instructor the very next day and returns to active duty as a mourning flower. The assassin recalls why she returned to active duty. After meeting that monstrous young prodigy, she felt compelled to sharpen her skills again through genuine life or death combat. Under the moonlight, she resolved to keep fighting until she could finally perfect what she calls her true dance. Back in the present, her memories ignite her fighting spirit as she grips her spider lily blade and focuses completely on Kay. The assassin assumes a poised combat stance before Kay, preparing to unveil the refined technique, the dance she has spent decades perfecting. Kay unexpectedly tells the elderly assassin that, despite everything, he never actually hated her all that much. His remark catches her off guard, leaving the veteran assassin visibly confused by the sudden change in tone. Kay repeats a lesson he once learned: pierce the enemy's will to fight before you pierce their heart. He admits that it was genuinely good advice. The elderly assassin immediately recognizes the significance of those words, realizing that Kay has a connection to the very person from her past whom she had been remembering. The elderly assassin is stunned by Kay's sudden transformation, staring at him in disbelief and muttering that what she is seeing should be impossible. Kay releases an overwhelming killing intent, his glowing red eyes and monstrous aura making him appear almost inhuman as he prepares to strike. Kay closes the distance instantly and clamps onto the assassin's weapon arm, forcing their fight into a violent close-quarters struggle before she can freely use her blade. Akari and Katajiri watch the exchange in alarm as the struggle reaches a critical moment, with the assassin apparently believing she has finally caught Kay. Kay seizes the assassin's weapon arm, but she instantly adapts by releasing the spider lily knife and letting it fall between them. With remarkable dexterity, the assassin catches the falling knife in her free hand, smoothly switching weapon hands in the middle of Kay's grapple. The unexpected transition lets her immediately counterattack, whipping the blade across Kay's neck before he can completely disengage. Blood sprays from the shallow cut along Kay's neck, yet he remains eerily composed, showing almost no reaction to how close the strike came to being fatal. The elderly assassin suddenly twists her body through an extreme evasive movement, contorting herself to escape Kay's pressure. She continues attacking through a flowing series of unusually flexible motions, circling around Kay from angles that would be difficult for an ordinary fighter to reproduce. Kay recognizes the technique as the Ivy and remarks that she clearly has not lost her edge despite her age. The narration explains the secret behind the Ivy. Congenital joint laxity and unusually flexible tendons give its user an exceptional range of motion, allowing seemingly unnatural movements in combat. The narration identifies the extraordinary flexibility technique as the Ivy, Lycoris's signature physical trait and one of the defining weapons of her assassination style. Lycoris flexes her unnaturally mobile fingers around the spider lily knife, demonstrating the joint laxity that allows her to manipulate weapons from highly unconventional angles. Surprised that Kay knows so much about the Ivy, Lycoris begins connecting the clues and asks whether he is really the infamous assassin known as Nightshade. Kay calmly refuses to deny it, answering, "And if I am, what are you going to do?" and openly challenging Lycoris now that she has realized who she is fighting. Lycoris hesitates, admitting that logically she cannot understand how someone as young as Kay could possibly be the legendary Nightshade. She studies Kay in silence, struggling to reconcile his age and appearance with the terrifying reputation attached to that name. Despite what reason tells her, Lycoris's instincts scream that the man standing before her truly is Nightshade, and she grips her weapon with renewed seriousness. Confronted by Kay's overwhelming presence and killing intent, Lycoris prepares to respond at full strength, declaring that she will show him what she is truly capable of. Lycoris finally becomes convinced that Kay truly is the same terrifying monster she has been chasing in her mind for decades. She suddenly launches forward, accelerating into her perfected technique before Kay can dictate the next exchange. Lycoris's movements become dramatically faster and more graceful than before, her attacks flowing through the battlefield like a storm of spider lily petals. Fully committing to her ultimate style, Lycoris raises her blade and declares, "Witness my dance," as she begins the technique she spent years perfecting. Lycoris begins twisting her entire body and weapon through a series of erratic angles, making the blade's path almost impossible to read. She unleashes her finishing technique, the Dance of Death, surrounding Kay with a storm of deceptive, constantly shifting slashes. Akari and Katajiri stare in shock at the bizarre attack pattern, unable to understand how anyone could defend against it. Kay keeps his composure and sees through the deception. Rather than following the blade's shifting trajectory, he focuses only on the weapon's tip, the part that can actually strike him. Kay meets Lycoris's Dance of Death head-on, using rapid bare-handed deflections to knock aside the incoming blade again and again. Akari and Katajiri can barely follow the exchange, stunned that Kay is actually redirecting Lycoris's weapon with his fists despite the incredible speed. Akari realizes that even Kay's extraordinary defense is not completely safe, sensing that Lycoris's relentless technique is still beginning to break through. One of Lycoris's slashes finally slips past Kay's guard and draws blood near his upper body, proving that the Dance of Death remains dangerous even against Nightshade's defenses. Kay grimaces after being cut, frustrated that his younger body allowed Lycoris's blade to touch him at all. A sudden realization hits Kay as he notices that the wound is having an unusual effect on his body. Kay remarks that he expected Lycoris to have another trick hidden away. While Lycoris reveals the meaning behind her spider lily motif, red spider lilies are poisonous. Lycoris calmly explains that the poison coating her weapon is not immediately lethal, it is designed to cause muscle paralysis, putting Kay in increasing danger as the fight continues. The red spider lily poison takes effect, symbolizing Lycoris's lethal technique as the paralysis begins interfering with Kay's body. Sensing that her poison has created the opening she wanted, Lycoris launches another furious assault and declares that she will be the one to reap Kay's life. Kay's leg suddenly gives way beneath him as the paralytic effect worsens, forcing him off balance with a strained grunt. Lycoris instantly notices his faltering movement and realizes that now is her chance to finish the fight. With Kay's movements impaired by the paralytic poison, Lycoris presses forward through the opening and continues her lethal dance of death. Breaking from the relentless barrage, Lycoris prepares the culmination of the technique, a single decisive strike intended to kill without fail. Lycoris commits everything to a final plunging attack, convinced she has finally cornered Nightshade, and internally declares, "I won." A horrified onlooker suddenly reacts to what happens in the decisive instant, signaling that the apparent finishing blow has not gone as Lycoris expected. At the instant Lycoris expects her finishing strike to land, Kay somehow stops the attack, catching and controlling the blade at point-blank range despite the paralysis affecting his body. For a brief moment, Lycoris smiles as though victory is assured, still believing her perfected dance of death has finally overwhelmed him. Her confidence immediately disappears when she realizes Kay has survived the supposedly decisive attack and is now right beside her, completely unfazed. Lycoris's instincts suddenly perceive Kay as a terrifying red-eyed monster looming behind her, and the psychological pressure of Nightshade's killing intent overwhelms her sense of triumph. Kay suddenly breaks through Lycoris's attack and seizes her by the throat, completely reversing the momentum of the fight at point-blank range. With overwhelming force, Kay drives Lycoris straight into the floor while maintaining his grip, brutally interrupting her dance of death. The impact leaves Lycoris stunned and coughing blood, her expression showing that she never anticipated Kay could counter so decisively while supposedly paralyzed. The spider lily knife is knocked free from Lycoris's hand and spins through the air, leaving her momentarily disarmed. Kay catches Lycoris's spinning spider lily knife by its handle, turning her own weapon into his counterattack. In one fluid motion, Kay drives the captured blade into Lycoris's upper body, drawing blood and completely reversing her attempted finishing sequence. Lycoris stares at Kay in stunned disbelief as she realizes he has used her own poisoned weapon against her. Wounded and visibly shaken, Lycoris begins to falter, clutching herself as the consequences of being struck by her own blade start to set in. With Lycoris defeated beneath him, Kay coldly remarks that even after all her growth, she still could not reach his level. Kay tells the fallen assassin that he will gladly fight her again in hell, treating their deadly battle almost like a promise of a future rematch. Lycoris weakly completes the thought, saying they can meet again on the surface of the Sanzu River, invoking the boundary between life and the afterlife. As Lycoris lies bloodied and defeated amid drifting red petals, she reflects that flowers blooming in bright red blood are themselves a beautiful spectacle, ending the fight on a grimly poetic note. Akari and Katajiri stare in stunned silence after witnessing Kay decisively defeat Lycoris. Kay's injured leg suddenly trembles and nearly buckles, showing that the paralytic poison is still affecting him despite his victory. Kay exhales heavily and steadies himself, clearly exhausted from forcing his body to keep moving through the poison. Katajiri anxiously calls out to Kay and asks whether he is okay, immediately realizing that he may have been poisoned during the fight. Kay admits that he is not actually okay, the poison is still affecting him, and he only delayed its effects by controlling his breathing. The narration explains tactical breathing, a specialized breathing technique used by elite operatives to remain composed and regulate their bodies in extreme situations. By suppressing his heart rate and slowing his blood flow, Kay managed to reduce how quickly the paralytic poison spread through his body. Katajiri considers calling a black market doctor employed by the Shido group. Kay refuses medical assistance, reasoning that it is unnecessary because a poison user would always carry an antidote, implying that Lycoris herself should have the cure nearby. As Kay searches through Lycoris's belongings, Akari and Katajiri ask what he has discovered. Kay produces a pocket watch and says he has found the next clue connected to the people targeting him. Examining the watch carefully, Kay realizes it may help him uncover who wants him dead and why. Akari silently watches him with concern, realizing that the fight with Lycoris has opened the door to a much larger mystery behind the assassination attempt. After the battle, the group settles back inside the Shido estate while the night grows quiet outside. Katajiri reflects grimly on what just happened, still tense after witnessing the confrontation with Lycoris and the revelation surrounding Kay. A medical kit is brought out so the injuries sustained during the attack can finally be treated. Akari carefully bandages Katajiri's wounds, tending to him personally as the group begins recovering from the assassination attempt. Akari finishes bandaging Katajiri's injuries and quietly says, "This should do it." Katajiri checks on Akari, asking whether she is hurt or in pain, but Akari abruptly tells him that they should stop this now. Akari explains that after witnessing Kay's battle with Lycoris, she finally understands just how abnormal he truly is, thinking, that man isn't human. Akari recalls Kay surviving Lycoris's terrifying dance of death and ultimately overpowering her, the memory reinforcing just how impossibly dangerous and powerful Kay really is. Katajiri reflects on Kay's terrifying combat ability, realizing that this is on an entirely different level from the street fights and gang wars he has known. Overwhelmed by his own limitations, Katajiri admits that with his current strength, he simply cannot protect Akari from enemies of this caliber. Clenching his injured, bandaged fist until it bleeds, Katajiri painfully declares, "I can't protect you," his frustration at his own weakness boiling over. Katajiri tells Akari that surviving this attack changes nothing, her life is still being targeted. Refusing to let the daughter of his late boss become involved in the deadly world of monsters like Kei and Lycoris, he insists that he will not allow her to continue down this path. Katajiri insists that he will handle the remaining gang affairs himself with the men who are still loyal, taking responsibility for what remains of the Shido group. He pleads with Akari to leave the area entirely, hide somewhere far away, and remain in a safe place until the danger surrounding her dies down. Kei suddenly joins the conversation and remarks that running away is certainly one possible option, revealing that he has been listening to their discussion. Katajiri and Akari turn toward Kei in surprise, with Katajiri demanding to know when he arrived, while Kei calmly stands there holding what appears to be the clue he recovered earlier. Kei studies Akari quietly, weighing Katajiri's suggestion that she simply abandon everything and escape the danger surrounding the Shido group. Akari meets his gaze without backing down, showing that despite Katajiri's fears, she has no intention of treating the situation like an ordinary frightened student. Kei points out the reality Katajiri is trying to ignore. Akari is not an innocent high school girl, she is the daughter of Shido, and that heritage has already tied her to the criminal world. Kei bluntly argues that blood and violence are already carved into Akari's fate. Whether she wants that inheritance or not, being Shido's daughter means it has been part of her life from the beginning. Kei compares Akari's connection to the underworld to a curse, something she cannot simply escape by running away, because sooner or later it will find her again. Katajiri angrily rejects Kei's words, shouting at him not to act as though he understands Akari or her circumstances. Kei abruptly cuts through the argument by revealing a major discovery. He has learned the name of the client who ordered the assassination. Akari and Katajiri stare at Kei in shock, realizing that he may finally have identified the person responsible for putting Akari's life in danger. Kei explains that he had an information dealer rapidly analyze the data stored in the pocket watch he recovered from Lycoris. The analysis uncovered the identity of the person responsible for sending the funeral flowers after the Shido boss, and Kei deliberately asks whether Akari and Katajiri want to know the name. Katajiri, impatient with Kei's teasing approach, demands that he stop playing coy and tell them who it is. Kei opens his laptop, preparing to show them the information his contact uncovered about the mysterious client behind the assassination plot. Kei reveals the client's identity as Masaya Kuroki, a 34-year-old Shido group executive serving as assistant head of the organization's sworn brothers. Katajiri reacts with complete disbelief, exclaiming that Kei has to be joking after seeing Kuroki's name. Akari explains that Kuroki was taken in by her father only a few years earlier, yet rose through the Shido group with extraordinary speed until becoming assistant head of the sworn brothers. Akari adds the reason for Kuroki's rapid ascent. He is exceptionally skilled at illegal business, making him one of the organization's most capable and dangerous figures. Akari explains that Kuroki built enormous influence by operating underground casinos and illegal fighting rings, bringing huge amounts of money into the Shido group. Although Kuroki originally entered the organization as an outsider, his ability made it seem inevitable that he would eventually rise into the Shido group's executive ranks. Kei concludes that Kuroki apparently was not willing to wait for eventually, suggesting that his ambition pushed him to accelerate his rise through more ruthless means, including employing assassins like Dahlia and Lycoris. Kei reveals another crucial connection. Dahlia and Lycoris belong to an assassin organization known as the Garden, identifying the group responsible for the deadly funeral flowers sent after their targets. Kei lays out Kuroki's apparent scheme. He allied himself with the Garden to eliminate the Shido boss, the veteran executives, and ultimately the boss's daughter, Akari. Once the existing leadership and heir were removed, Kuroki intended to take the boss's seat for himself, using the assassinations to clear his path to power. Kei explains that Kuroki's ambitions go far beyond controlling the Shido group. He intends to use its influence and resources to unify the country's underworld under his authority. Kuroki would then place that expanded criminal empire beneath the Garden's protection, creating a mutually beneficial alliance. Kei concludes that this is the larger picture Kuroki appears to have been constructing. Kei states his own objective clearly. His goal is to thwart and completely destroy the Garden's plans, putting him directly against the organization behind the assassinations. After explaining everything he has uncovered, Kei turns the decision back to Akari and asks, Now then, what will you do, young lady? Kay presses her further, asking whether she still intends to run away now that she knows who is behind the attacks and what is truly at stake. Akari quietly straightens herself and settles into a formal kneeling posture, signaling that she has made up her mind and is preparing to give Kay her answer. Akari rises and moves toward the window, rejecting the idea of fleeing with a firm, "Don't be ridiculous." Katajiri immediately protests, shouting that she cannot stay and confront enemies this dangerous. Akari acknowledges Katajiri's devotion, telling him that she genuinely appreciates his loyalty and concern for her safety. But Akari refuses to tuck her tail and run before even discovering the identity of the person who killed her parents, making it clear that she has chosen to pursue the truth rather than hide. Akari rejects the idea of fleeing as a pathetic choice, declaring that running away is not the Shido way and reaffirming the pride she carries in her family name. Katajiri clenches his teeth in frustration, realizing that despite his desire to protect her, Akari has already made her decision. Kay gives a faint approving smile and acknowledges Akari's determination, telling her, "Looks like your resolve is set." Akari calmly reveals that she never intended to run away in the first place, making it clear that confronting the truth behind her family's enemies was always the path she meant to take. Akari acknowledges the dark truth behind her inheritance. The Shido mansion and her family's wealth were built through criminal means. She refuses to pretend that being raised within that world makes her completely innocent and accepts that she may someday have to answer for it. Even so, Akari declares that she will not surrender Shido to a coward like Kuroki, choosing to face the consequences of her family legacy rather than abandon it. Kay responds with a subtle, approving smile, clearly satisfied by Akari's resolve and willingness to confront the danger head-on. Akari realizes she still does not know the mysterious fighter's name and finally asks him directly. He gives her a simple answer, "Call me Kay." Kay tells Akari that his secrecy is not because he distrusts her. He believes it is safer for both of them if she remains ignorant of information that is not necessary for their cooperation. Accepting his conditions, Akari formally hires Kay and asks him to become the strength she needs to confront Kuroki. Akari offers Kay exactly the reward that aligns with his own mission. In exchange for helping her defeat Kuroki, she will aid him in pursuing the annihilation of the garden. Akari seals the alliance by declaring that she will stake everything the Shido group possesses on cooperating with Kay, committing her organization and resources fully to their shared fight. Kay considers Akari's offer with a faint smile, recognizing that the resources of the Shido group could be exactly what he needs for his war against the garden. He reflects on the sheer scale of everything Shido possesses, its extensive information network throughout the underworld, and its enormous financial power. Shido's influence also reaches deep into the political and business worlds, giving Kay access to connections far beyond ordinary criminal circles. He concludes that there could be no better support for crushing the garden. Kay's expression hardens with renewed determination as he realizes that partnering with Akari and using Shido's full power may finally give him the means to wage a serious campaign against his true enemy. Kay accepts Akari's proposal with a handshake, formally sealing their alliance with a simple declaration, "It's a deal." The story shifts away from the Shido estate to the city at night, signaling a transition to the opposing side of the conflict. Masaya Kuroki sits waiting and grows suspicious, wondering what has happened because Lycoris has not contacted him at all since returning from her mission. A hooded subordinate enters the room, and Kuroki immediately asks for his opinion on the troubling silence, suggesting that he is beginning to suspect the assassination operation has gone wrong. The hooded subordinate is revealed as Campanula, another member associated with the garden. Campanula reacts coolly to Kuroki's concern, showing little surprise that Lycoris has gone silent. Kuroki presses her for information, asking whether she has heard anything about what happened to Lycoris after the mission. Campanula dismisses the question, bluntly saying that looking after the old hag isn't her job, making it clear she has no intention of keeping track of Lycoris for him. Campanula casually suggests that Lycoris may simply have become irritated at being assigned to finish off a mere high school girl, explaining that the veteran assassin has an unusually strong sense of pride. Kuroki abruptly loses patience with Campanula's indifferent attitude, his frustration exploding as the uncertainty surrounding Lycoris becomes impossible for him to ignore. Kuroki angrily tells Campanula to stop making irresponsible guesses and demands to know whether Lycoris might actually be dead somewhere, just like Dahlia. Campanula remains remarkably calm, remarking that garden assassins are constantly praised as the strongest assassins, but her skeptical tone suggests she is beginning to question whether that reputation is truly deserved. Kuroki dismisses Campanula's attitude as empty talk and finally snaps, telling her, "That's enough." Before Kuroki can react, Campanula suddenly closes the distance and places a blade against his neck, instantly turning the balance of power against him. Kuroki freezes in shock, unable to understand when she even moved, realizing that Campanula's speed and skill are far beyond what he can follow. Campanula coldly warns Kuroki not to misunderstand their relationship. The garden is only assisting him because doing so serves the garden's own objectives, not because its assassins are his subordinates. With Campanula's blade still at his throat, Kuroki nervously backs down and apologizes. Campanula reminds him that the garden's funeral flowers are not something he controls or commands. Campanula withdraws the knife after leaving a thin cut on Kuroki's neck and coolly warns him, "It's fine, be careful next time." Kuroki remains standing in tense silence as Campanula turns away, the encounter making it clear that despite their cooperation, he has no authority over the garden. Campanula casually walks out with her hands in her pockets, apparently unconcerned, while Kuroki is left to deal with the consequences of having challenged one of the garden's assassins. After Campanula's warning, Kuroki regains his composure and decides not to dwell on Akari, reasoning that whether one high school girl lives or dies will not change the larger plan. Kuroki reflects that all of the veteran Shido executives who could have opposed him are already dead, leaving the organization's old power structure effectively dismantled. Confident that Shido is mine, Kuroki declares his intention to use control of the syndicate as a foothold to unify the country's underworld under his rule. Campanula responds with an ominous grin, invoking the name of the garden, reinforcing that Kuroki's ambitions remain intertwined with the assassin organization's own agenda. 2 days later, the story shifts to a brightly lit city district at night, signaling the beginning of the next phase of Kei and Akari's plan. Inside one of Kuroki's underground casinos, the floor is packed with gamblers, dealers, and wealthy patrons throwing themselves into the games. Roulette wheels spin, card games escalate with increasingly reckless bets, and affluent guests enjoy the lavish atmosphere, showing just how profitable and active Kuroki's illegal gambling operation is. A woman steps into the casino and is formally greeted with a simple welcome, marking the arrival of someone who may be entering Kuroki's territory for a purpose beyond gambling. Akari enters Kuroki's casino dressed as an elegant high-class guest, accompanied by suited escorts as part of the opening move in their counterattack. Kei watches their approach toward the casino's restricted area, calmly guiding the operation while Akari maintains her disguise among the wealthy clientele. Their destination is the VIP room. Kei mentally declares, "Now, let the showtime begin," Masaya Kuroki, signaling that their plan is officially underway. Dressed sharply and burning with determination, Kei frames this infiltration as the first step of their counterattack against the garden, vowing to light the signal fire inside Kuroki's own castle. The casino's roulette tables stay busy as chips pile up and the ball races around the wheel, emphasizing the huge amount of money constantly changing hands. Nearby, a slot machine lands on triple sevens, adding to the flashy atmosphere and the sense that fortunes can shift in an instant. At the card tables, dealers rapidly distribute hands while wealthy patrons continue betting, showing that every corner of the casino is operating at full capacity. The floor is packed with affluent guests, escorts, and staff enjoying themselves, creating the perfect cover for Kei and Akari's operation as they move deeper into Kuroki's territory. Akari and her escorts move openly through the casino floor, immediately drawing attention from nearby patrons despite their attempt to blend in. Dressed elegantly in white, Akari becomes the center of attention as one guest points her out, remarking on the unusually young woman among the casino's wealthy clientele. Other patrons begin whispering that Akari looks too young and out of place, while one person feels that her face is strangely familiar, raising the risk that her identity may be recognized. Katajiri notices the growing attention and nervously warns that they are standing out far too much, realizing that their infiltration may become complicated before they even reach their objective. Kei notices the attention Akari is attracting and smiles, confirming that everything is unfolding just as planned. Their conspicuous entrance was intentional. The story briefly flashes back to the Shido estate, revealing the meeting where Kei first explained the operation they are now carrying out. Kei calmly presents his proposed strategy to Akari and Katajiri, but his idea immediately leaves them stunned by how reckless it sounds. The reaction erupts into outrage as someone slams a hand onto the table and demands whether Kei is an idiot, showing just how absurdly dangerous his plan initially seemed. Katajiri furiously challenges Kei's plan, demanding to know why Akari must personally enter enemy territory. Kei answers that her presence is necessary if she intends to protect the Shido group itself. Katajiri argues that if the objective were simply to eliminate Kuroki, Kei could assassinate him alone without putting Akari in danger. Kei counters by asking Katajiri to think beyond Kuroki's death. What would happen to Shido afterward? Kei explains the problem. If Akari stayed hidden while he killed Kuroki, Shido would lose both its veteran leadership and its highest-earning executive, leaving no figure powerful enough to succeed them. The organization would fracture into an internal succession war and ultimately be devoured by rival syndicates. Katajiri can only mutter damn as Kei's reasoning sinks in, realizing that simply killing Kuroki would leave Shido vulnerable to collapse. Kei presents the alternative. If Akari, the late boss's sole heir, personally challenges the traitor Kuroki and takes his head, the succession problem changes completely. Kei explains that such a victory would make it unmistakably clear to everyone in Shido who the rightful successor is. If Akari openly steps forward and claims leadership, he believes the organization's men will follow her. Akari listens with a hardened, determined expression before quietly addressing her protector, Katajiri. In the flashback, Akari decisively instructs Katajiri to contact Mason Iris in Matamachi immediately, catching him off guard with the sudden request. Akari explains that she needs a new dress, something suitable for the greatest of knights, and orders Katajiri to have it tailored as a rush job, showing that she has fully committed to Kei's plan. Kei watches Akari's response with a knowing smile, clearly pleased that she understands the symbolic importance of making a dramatic public appearance rather than hiding. The flashback ends and the story returns to the present, focusing on the casino's VIP entrance as Akari's group prepares to move into the heart of Kuroki's territory. Inside the VIP room, one of Kuroki's men quietly approaches and whispers an unexpected report to him, immediately drawing his attention. Kuroki reacts in surprise upon hearing that the Shido group's young mistress has appeared at the casino. His subordinate confirms that Akari is openly walking the casino floor with 2 bodyguards. Realizing the assassination attempt failed, Kuroki clicks his tongue in irritation and mutters, "So she's still alive." Akari's bold appearance confirms that his problem has returned directly to his doorstep. Campanula looks delighted by the development, saying that it works out perfectly. She casually offers to go deal with Akari immediately, apparently eager to eliminate the Shido heir herself. Kuroki won't attack Akari in front of customers because it would hurt the casino's reputation. He orders his men to treat her like a normal guest for now. Kuroki stays inside the VIP room instead of confronting her. Katajiri takes this as proof that the rumors about Kuroki being a traitor are true. Kei explains that their first objective is to draw Kuroki out onto the casino floor, forcing him to react instead of remaining safely hidden in the VIP room. Akari scans the casino and considers how to attract enough attention to make Kuroki take notice of her presence. She decides to play around for a bit, choosing to use the casino itself as part of their strategy rather than confronting Kuroki directly. Akari approaches a blackjack table and begins gambling, setting the next stage of the plan in motion while deliberately making herself impossible for Kuroki to ignore. Akari, Kei, and Katajiri arrive at a high-stakes table, immediately drawing attention from the gamblers already seated there. The dealer politely stops Akari and apologizes before allowing her to join the game. She is informed that the minimum bet at the table is 1 million yen, making it clear that only serious high rollers are expected to play. Kei calmly steps forward with the briefcase, ready to show that money will not be a problem for Akari's entrance into the game. Kei opens the briefcase, revealing an enormous amount of casino chips. The chips are stacked onto the table in towering piles, instantly shocking everyone nearby. Akari calmly says she doesn't mind the high minimum bet, adding that she has no interest in making small wagers anyway. The dealer quickly apologizes, realizing Akari is far wealthier and far more serious than he assumed. The dealer begins shuffling and preparing the cards as Akari's high-stakes game officially starts. He places the deck down and tells Akari, "Well then, good luck." 1 hour later, the atmosphere has completely changed, with nearby gamblers gathering around and reacting nervously to what is happening at the table. Even the dealer is visibly sweating, suggesting that Akari's performance has become far more overwhelming than anyone expected. Akari remains completely calm despite the growing tension around the table. A huge crowd has gathered as her mountain of chips continues to grow, making her winning streak impossible to ignore. The nervous dealer announces no more bets and begins the next round. Akari receives her cards and studies the hand without changing expression, ready to continue her extraordinary run. The dealer is visibly sweating as the pressure from Akari's winning streak continues to build. He reveals a queen and a 5, giving him a total of 15 and forcing him to draw another card. Nervously, the dealer pulls the next card from the deck. He hesitates before revealing it, knowing this draw could determine whether he finally stops Akari's streak. The dealer nervously draws another card, knowing his current total of 15 leaves him no choice but to hit. The next card is revealed to be the 8 of hearts, immediately pushing the dealer over 21. With his queen, 5, and 8 totaling 23, the dealer busts, giving Akari yet another victory. The dealer announces Akari as the winner while the crowd erupts in disbelief. After so many consecutive wins, some spectators begin wondering whether she could possibly be cheating. Kay watches Akari's incredible streak and wonders just what is going on. The narration explains that blackjack is not a game of pure luck. A strategy called card counting can improve the odds by tracking which cards have already been played and calculating the remaining probabilities. The method became famous through organized card counting teams, including the legendary Mitt Blackjack team, which won millions in Las Vegas. Kay's mental calculation ability is revealed to be on a completely different level, surpassing even the legendary card counting methods used by professional teams. Kay memorizes every card that has appeared, constantly recalculates the probabilities of the remaining deck, and predicts the most likely cards to come next. Kay secretly sends this information to Akari through light signals from his wristwatch, allowing her to make the optimal decision without openly communicating. The narration explains why Kay excels at this. Assassination itself requires finding the optimal solution among countless variables, such as a target's behavior, movements, and infiltration routes. Compared with tracking guards, ammunition, cameras, and even wind on a battlefield, Kay considers calculating 312 cards across 6 decks incredibly easy. His card counting is described as extreme high-speed processing, an ability developed through surviving countless deadly situations as Nightshade. Akari's relentless winning streak overwhelms the dealer while the surrounding crowd watches in amazement. Akari calmly refuses to stop, saying she hasn't played enough yet and asks the dealer to begin the next hand. The dealer suddenly notices someone approaching and freezes in fear. A nervous casino employee trembles, terrified that another major loss could cost him dearly. The crowd turns as Kuroki finally appears, casually greeting Akari. "You should have told me you were coming, Princess Akari." Akari faces him calmly and replies, "It's been a while." Kuroki pretends to be welcoming, telling Akari that if he had known she was coming, he would have personally greeted her. Kuroki approaches with a confident smile, acting as though there is no hostility between them. Katajiri immediately sees through the act, angrily thinking that Kuroki is telling such a bald-faced lie. Akari remains composed beside her enormous pile of winnings, quietly watching Kuroki and waiting for his next move. Kuroki applauds Akari's huge winnings and politely asks her to stop playing, promising that the casino will pay everything she has won. He adds a personal cash gift, presenting it as a celebration of her impressive success. Kuroki tells Akari to use the money to treat herself and her companions to a nice meal, clearly trying to send her away peacefully. Akari responds with a sharp insult, calling Kuroki the rat that took up residence in my father's castle and remarking that the rat has grown awfully fat. Kuroki keeps smiling confidently, trying to maintain his composure despite Akari's direct provocation. Akari accuses him of using the florist as his backer, making it clear that she knows about his connection to the garden. Kuroki's expression darkens as he realizes Akari knows far more about his dealings than he expected. The surrounding guests begin whispering, confused about who the florist is and shocked by Akari's nerve as the old Shido boss's only daughter. Kuroki warns Princess Akari that she should stop playing with fire before things become dangerous. Akari calmly rises from the table and agrees, showing no sign of being intimidated by his warning. She says she is bored of card games anyway, making it clear that blackjack was only a way to draw Kuroki out. Akari then challenges him directly, asking to try the casino's most popular attraction, pushing their confrontation into its next stage. Kuroki falls silent, realizing exactly what Akari is suggesting with her challenge. He asks whether she means the casino's infamous Cage of Blood. The Cage of Blood is revealed to be a brutal underground, no-holds-barred martial arts tournament held beneath the casino. Akari proposes that she and Kuroki each send a piece into the ring, with the last fighter standing declared the winner. Kuroki notes that no matches are scheduled, but Akari makes it clear she intends to place a wager anyway. Akari raises the stakes dramatically, offering everything she inherited from her father, the Shido Group's assets, the main estate, and even herself as her wager. In return, Akari demands that Kuroki wager the entire casino, turning their confrontation into an all-or-nothing gamble. Kuroki is stunned by the proposal, realizing that this is no ordinary bet but essentially a battle over succession and control of the Shido group. The sheer scale of Akari's challenge shocks everyone around them, with the moment described as a historic gamble that could determine the future of both sides. Kuroki realizes that refusing Akari's challenge in front of everyone would destroy his reputation. Akari smiles and deliberately provokes him, asking if he is really going to run away. Kuroki grits his teeth, clearly irritated that Akari has cornered him publicly. Unable to back down, Kuroki accepts the situation with a dark smile, saying, "Interesting." Kuroki accepts Akari's challenge, snapping, "You're on, you little brat." Akari holds her ground as the confrontation ends, successfully forcing Kuroki into the wager. Kei watches with a satisfied smile and realizes he took the bait. Attention shifts back toward the VIP area, signaling that preparations for the Cage of Blood match are about to begin. Campanula watches the casino from a hidden surveillance room, monitoring the confrontation through security cameras. The cameras capture Akari, Kuroki, and Kei as the wager for the Cage of Blood is finalized. Campanula focuses closely on Kei, clearly taking a special interest in him. She grins beneath her hood and quietly laughs, suggesting that Kei's presence has made the situation far more entertaining for her. Guards stand watch at a secured entrance, blocking access to the casino's hidden underground area. The guards open the entrance, revealing the dark passage leading down to the Cage of Blood. The underground fighting arena comes into view, ready for the special match Akari has demanded. The spectators erupt with excitement, realizing an unexpected high-stakes fight is about to begin. The announcer welcomes the crowd with, "Ladies and gentlemen, scoundrels and villains." The underground arena is officially introduced as the Cage of Blood. The announcer explains that no match had originally been scheduled for tonight. Instead, a special last-minute fight is announced, with Kei facing a massive opponent as the excited crowd realizes they are about to witness something unusual. The announcer introduces the fighter in the red corner, a huge and intimidating veteran. He is revealed as Takeshi the Destroyer Kuno, the undefeated champion of the Cage of Blood. The announcer then turns to the blue corner, building suspense for Kuno's opponent. Kei stands calmly in the blue corner, completely unfazed despite facing the arena's undefeated champion. Kei is introduced as the mysterious codename Kei, with his real identity and background completely unknown to the audience. The spectators mock Kei's lean appearance, wondering how someone so ordinary-looking could possibly stand against the massive champion. Kuno's reputation is emphasized. He is an undefeated full-contact karate fighter known for sending previous opponents straight to the hospital. Katajiri nervously asks whether Kei can truly win, admitting that even though he knows Kei is strong, this opponent looks exceptionally dangerous. Katajiri warns Kei that his opponent is an extremely skilled martial artist, clearly worried about the mismatch. Kei calmly replies, "I am not a martial artist." He shows no concern despite Kuno's reputation. The rules of the Cage of Blood are announced. Weapons are prohibited, but almost everything else is allowed. Kuno smirks confidently, looking completely certain that Kei will be easy prey once the fight begins. Kei remains calm and focused as the match is about to begin. The announcer gives the signal, "Now then, ready, fight." The instant the match starts, Kuno explodes forward with a massive punch aimed directly at Kei, wasting no time testing him. Kuno's opening blow crashes into Kei's guard with tremendous force, immediately putting him on the defensive. Kuno aggressively taunts Kei, shouting, "What's wrong, suit brat?" as he continues pressing forward. Kuno unleashes a relentless barrage of heavy strikes while Kei remains covered up, making the crowd believe he can't even fight back. The spectators go wild, screaming for Kuno to crush Kei and even beat him to death as the brutal match intensifies. Kuno continues hammering Kei with a relentless barrage while Kei stays planted in the center of the ring. Watching from ringside, Akari calmly responds, "No." She realizes Kei is not simply being overwhelmed. Kuroki notices the same thing. Kei is precisely deflecting the core force of Kuno's strikes, minimizing their impact. Despite Kuno's non-stop attacks, Kei hasn't moved even a single inch from his starting position, revealing just how completely he is controlling the exchange. Kei continues effortlessly redirecting Kuno's heavy punches, refusing to be pushed back. Kuroki dismisses Kei's defense as an entertaining parlor trick, clearly unimpressed. Akari remains completely calm, showing no reaction to Kuroki's attempt to intimidate her. Kuroki warns Akari that mainstream martial arts are nothing like the brutal underworld they live in, implying that Kuno has far more dangerous methods still to reveal. Kei continues neutralizing Kuno's attacks, while Kuroki argues that in a lawless fight, victory is not decided by refined technique. Kuno grins wildly, embodying the brutal fighting style Kuroki is describing. Kuroki declares that what truly rules the underworld is pure, unreasonable violence. Akari suddenly tugs at Kuroki's sleeve, catching him off guard and interrupting his confident explanation. Kuroki leans beside Akari and threatens that once the match is over, he'll have to teach her as well. With a sinister grin, Kuroki adds, because a pet requires discipline, openly treating Akari as someone he intends to control. Kuroki laughs smugly, convinced that both the fight and Akari are already within his grasp. Kei dismisses Kuroki's arrogance as a joke, mocking him for trying to put a collar on someone when Kuroki himself is nothing more than a lapdog for the garden. Akari looks at Kuroki with open disgust, saying that his arrogant behavior makes me sick. Kuroki's smug smile tightens as the insults finally begin to get under his skin. Irritated, Kuroki forcefully crushes his cigarette into the ashtray, losing his earlier composure. Kuroki suddenly leans forward and screams at Kuno, "Hey, Kuno, how much longer are you gonna play around?" demanding that he stop toying with Kei and finish the fight. Kuroki stares in shock, realizing something is wrong with Kuno. Kuno's legs are trembling and sweat is dripping to the floor. His relentless barrage has already drained his stamina. The supposedly unstoppable champion is now gasping heavily for breath, exhausted despite Kei barely attacking him. Kei remains completely relaxed and gives a faint smile, revealing that Kuno has been wearing himself down the entire time. The spectators are confused. Although Kuno has done almost all the attacking, he is somehow the one completely exhausted. Kei calmly mocks him, asking, "What's wrong? Can't even lift a finger anymore?" Kuno's eyes widen in shock as he realizes Kei has been waiting for exactly this moment. Kei finally counterattacks, exploding forward and striking the exhausted Kuno before he can properly react. Kei's counter lands cleanly, blasting Kuno backward with overwhelming force. Kuno crashes onto the floor and lies sprawled out in the ring after a single decisive exchange. The spectators fall into stunned silence, unable to believe the undefeated champion was dropped so suddenly. Even the announcer is left speechless, staring in shock at how quickly the fight has turned. The referee begins counting over the fallen Kuno, while Katajiri asks Kei, "What did you do?" Kei calmly explains, "When you take down a beast, the first thing you do is break its fangs." Katajiri looks confused by Kei's cryptic answer, while Kei remains completely composed. Suddenly, the announcer referee collapses onto the floor, leaving everyone nearby stunned and wondering what just happened. Kei notices something unusual happening beyond the ring, turning his attention away from the fallen Kuno. The hooded Campanula suddenly appears among the spectators, with another person already collapsed behind her. A strange dark haze sweeps through the crowd, leaving the nearby guests confused about what just happened. Campanula slips rapidly through the crowd under cover of the disturbance, moving unnoticed before anyone can properly react. The nearby spectators grow confused, realizing that people around them are suddenly being attacked. Campanula moves straight through the crowd, casually striking down anyone who gets in her way. She lands a brutal kick to one man's face, dropping him before he can react. Campanula stands calmly over another fallen spectator, leaving a trail of unconscious bodies behind her as she advances. The arena is littered with unconscious spectators as the disturbance spreads around the cage of blood. Kei remarks that the casino clearly isn't very hospitable to its guests, seeing how many people have already been dropped. Kei confronts Campanula directly, asking, "So, what do you think you're doing?" Campanula casually replies that she only knocked them out, then adds that she is simply here as the closer, the one who brings the curtain down on this stage. Campanula lowers herself into position, shifting her stance as if preparing to make her next move. Facing Kei, she explains that they can't have ad-lib actors ruining the script, revealing that events are supposed to follow a carefully arranged plan. Kei catches on to the wording and repeats, "Script," realizing there is a larger scheme behind the casino confrontation. Campanula explains that if Kei and Akari simply win here, then all the groundwork her side has laid would be wasted, confirming that the garden has been manipulating events toward a specific outcome. The arena falls quiet as Campanula takes control of the situation after Kei's victory. Campanula announces that she will erase the outcome and make it as though the match never happened, then asks Kuroki for approval. Kuroki readily agrees, smiling as he tells her, "Yeah, I'll leave it to you." Campanula turns back toward Kay and begins moving, saying, "So, sorry about this," but signaling that she is about to personally intervene. Campanula launches a sharp sickle kick aimed lethally toward Kay's carotid artery, but Kay successfully avoids the strike. Kay immediately studies Campanula's movement, realizing her technique is far more specialized than ordinary street fighting. Campanula recognizes Kay's earlier movements as well and asks, "You're a Silat user, aren't you? Which style?" Silat is explained as a traditional Southeast Asian martial art renowned for its extreme combat effectiveness, with variations adopted by military and special forces units across multiple countries. The explanation continues, revealing that Silat contains hundreds of different styles, rather than one standardized system. Some Silat styles specialize almost entirely in bare-handed combat, using fast strikes, evasions, and close-range counters. Other branches emphasize more dangerous techniques, including knife fighting and joint locks, making Silat extremely adaptable in real combat. Kay's eyes sharpen as he analyzes Campanula, realizing that identifying which Silat style she uses may be crucial to predicting her next attack. Kay immediately launches a rapid combination, attacking Campanula from multiple angles before she can settle into the exchange. Campanula's eyes sharpen as she calmly reads Kay's movements, showing that she can follow his speed. She slips inside Kay's offense and counters at close range, disrupting his balance before he can complete the combination. Campanula resets into a composed Silat stance, effortlessly turning Kay's aggression aside and making it clear that this fight will be far more difficult than Kuno's. Campanula's counter sends Kay flying backward, showing that her strikes carry surprising power despite her smaller frame. Kay catches himself with one hand and stops his fall before quickly recovering. Kay rises with blood at the corner of his mouth, now visibly affected by Campanula's attack. Katajiri is stunned. Kay barely reacted to Kuno's iron fists, yet Campanula sent him flying with just one hand, revealing how dangerous she truly is. Akari and Kuroki watch closely as Kay realizes Campanula's abilities are far beyond those of an ordinary fighter. Kay recognizes that Campanula possesses reaction speed and physical power that transcend normal human limits. Putting the clues together, Kay directly asks Campanula, "Are you one of the funeral flowers?" The ominous funeral flowers emblem appears, strongly confirming Kay's suspicion about Campanula's true affiliation. Campanula confirms Kay's suspicion, casually admitting that he has correctly identified her as one of the funeral flowers. She formally introduces herself as Campanula, the flower of gratitude. Campanula cheerfully thanks Kay for giving her an entertaining fight at the end of an otherwise boring assignment. With her identity revealed, Campanula squares off against Kay again, while Katajiri watches nervously, signaling that their real confrontation is only beginning. Kay wipes the blood from his mouth and calmly replies, "No, the pleasure is all mine, Campanula." Instead of being intimidated, he seems genuinely excited by the challenge. Kay's expression turns terrifying as he declares that since Campanula belongs to the funeral flowers, he can finally pluck her without holding back, signaling that he is about to fight seriously.